Welcome, Greek U Nations, episode number 455 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, my kids are now wrapping up all of their final exams. My son is in his first semester as a data science major at MTSU, and my daughter is wrapping up her senior year in high school, and she is headed to Rice University in Houston, Texas this fall. Now, anxiety is something that they battle all the time. I literally saw it this weekend as they're preparing for their final exams, and they have this extreme pressure to perform at a very high level in order to get into their dream college or get their dream job in a very demanding field of work. Our next guest is going to give us some tips on working through all of that anxiety that hits every single one of us. Talia Gutierrez is a skilled motivational mental health professional and a speaker that has the ability to create lasting change on individuals' lives through her work. Talia has been sharing her knowledge with an audience since 2018 when she began a blog. Talia has a vast background in communications from her undergraduate degree, internships in radio and TV, content creation on social media, and a number of workshops and conferences that she has spoken at. She has a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from Liberty University and is a psychotherapist in private practice. Talia's keynote speech is on putting your oxygen mask on first. This is one that will leave the audience walking away with practical tools and tips to improve their mental well-being. Welcome to the show, Talia.
Awesome. I am so excited. Thank you for having me today.
Of course. Are you kidding? I mean, listen, anytime you want to talk about mental health with college students, my answer is always
Yes.
going to be yes. We need to have
Awesome.
more conversations like this.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, so let's talk about it. You obviously decided on Kennesaw State University for your undergrad experience, and not too far from me, where I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I want to say it's probably about 3.5 hours or so. So, what made you choose Kennesaw of all places?
You know what? It's so bizarre how I ended up in Kennesaw. I was born in California. We moved to Savannah, and in Savannah in high school, everybody was going to Georgia Southern University, and I was like, I need to get out of this small town. I need to get back to the city because that always felt like, my true self. And so I had a friend at Kennesaw, and I was just like, that's where I'm going to go. I really didn't apply anywhere else. And I think it was because I didn't have much help from my parents in, college searching. And so Kennesaw kind of fit the bill, and that's where I ended up.
I love it. I love the fraternity and sorority community at Kennesaw State. They are absolutely incredible. It's just so funny. A girl from California ends up at Kennesaw State.
It
It's
is.
like, if you had that on your bingo card, then I don't know, man. You must know a lot more than I do because I wouldn't have expected that. But I'm
Right.
so happy that you had a great experience there because you joined Delta Phi Epsilon sorority over there. What was special about these women that made you want to join them?
I really feel I'm going to date myself by saying this, but when I rushed, there was only 3 sororities on campus. And so getting the close connection with Delta Phi Epsilon and really getting to meet the women, I felt like it was most like me. Like these people, these sisters were a place where I could just show up as my genuine, authentic self. And so essentially that was like they say, the place that I was able to call home. And I loved it throughout my 4 years of college there.
I love it. Yeah, there definitely was a very small community way back when. Certainly, I knew the guys at Sigma Pi over there, and so I know that was always a battle for them just to continue to recruit, and that was always a problem. Now, obviously, the campus and the fraternity and sorority community has grown quite a bit, so it's always good to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about mental health. What
Mhm.
makes you so passionate about this topic of mental health?
Honestly, it roots back to my own personal journey. Just as I kind of talked about, like choosing a college wasn't really something that I had a lot of help in. And as a kid, I really was forced to be very independent and figure out life my own. And so that played into my personal story through college and all of that. I really lived up to, like, you have to have it all figured out. Nobody else is going to help you, because that's the way I was raised. I didn't really have a lot of that help. So I actually came to a point my senior year, as you mentioned, anxiety, stressors, all of that. I was in my senior year getting ready to finish all my finals and everything. And I was just completely like tapped out. I didn't know how to take care of myself back then. I was so stressed, and I was so worried about what was going to come after college, which I know so many people can relate to. You're like, I have to get a job, I have to follow this path. But now I don't have that structure that college gave me. I don't have that syllabus or agenda that I know what the exact next step or next class is that I have to take. Now it's time for me to step up and figure it out on my own. And that just honestly was like my breaking point. I didn't know. I also was dealing with a lot of struggles with friendships and bullying and things like that. And I had nobody to turn to and really help me through this tough time of my life. So it actually got so dark that I thought there was no other option but to try and take my own life. And I thought that, I didn't want to be here anymore, that I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know how I was going to keep going on. And so, unfortunately, that was where my mind tried to take me. But, by the grace of God, I was able to pull through that. I was able to survive. I got help. I started therapy. And that is honestly, like, I like to say, where my life really began, because I started investing in myself. I learned, like, that life is so much more than this highlight reel or perfectionism or these standards, that like you actually have the opportunity to create this life that you love, and you get to build this life that's worth living. And so that is now what has made me so passionate about helping other people, because I know it could save their lives and it could change their lives just like it did mine.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I know you're empowering a lot of our listeners that have gone through similar difficulties. And so just by talking about it, I feel like we're reducing that stigma around mental health. Sometimes I just want to call it like brain health. There's so
Mhm.
much stigma around mental health. And it's like, just earlier today, I was working out at the gym, and we don't think twice about going to work out,
Right?
whether it's our biceps or our chest or what have you. So let's just talk about it in terms of our brain. It's just another organ in our body that we're
Totally.
working out. And it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but there still is that stigma that somehow you're broken if you have mental health struggles. But meanwhile, we all go through it. It's all on this continuum of ups and downs. And, it's part of it.
Yeah.
And so you completed your master's in clinical mental health counseling at Liberty University, and now you're working as a psychotherapist. Talk to our audience about what is it like doing that job?
Honestly, it's such a privilege. It's such an honor to get to walk alongside so many people and hear their deepest, darkest secrets, struggles, whatever it is. And just knowing that I get to provide that safe space for them, a space that like maybe I didn't have growing up, but I so desperately needed. And so I know others so desperately need this too. So it just feels like the stars have aligned, and I'm doing exactly what I was like made to do, and I completely love it. I have a background as a flight attendant. I've been a flight attendant for 9 years, and so I like to kid around and say that I think my job as a therapist um, relates to my job as a flight attendant, because the stuff I hear on the jump seat, we kid around that it's jump seat therapy. And so I have always worked with a diverse group of people, and I love people. So everything has just really prepared me to be in the exact space that I am right now.
See, I love that. I want to be on a plane with you in the jump seat because then I get like a free session. You won't
It
even
is.
charge me and we get to talk. It's great.
I know. I have to cut it off a lot of times.
You got to be like, time out. All right, now we're starting to get into some deep stuff. I need to start
Yeah.
charging you for this.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And I also want to talk about body image too, because it's a problem for so many of today's college students. We're living in this world where we're constantly comparing ourselves to somebody else's best day on Instagram or whatever. Choose your social media. So, what are some tips for self-acceptance and self-love?
I absolutely love this question. This is 100% my niche. I love empowering women to learn how to come to a place of body neutrality. We don't even have to say body positive or body acceptance. It's just the fact that our body is just the body. And the body is the least interesting thing about us. We are, so talented, smart. We have all these things going for us, and that we don't need to give so much power to our body. But just like you said, social media is doing that. This is a learned behavior. Think about when a baby comes out of the womb, they aren't hating themselves, they aren't hating their body. This is something that is learned. And so, my practical tips when it comes to this, especially if you don't have the finances to invest in finding a therapist and all of that, simply look at your media consumption. Whether that is social media, what you're watching on TV, who you're following. People are called influencers online for a reason because they influence us. So if they're talking about what they ate in this day, or they can't eat this, or how much they don't like their body, all of that, that is impacting your brain. So how many hours are you spending scrolling? Who are you following? Filter that. You're allowed to mute people, and you're allowed to unfollow people. So when it comes to self-love and self-acceptance, the number one simple tip is starting there. Like, who are you surrounding yourself with, and what are you taking in every day?
Yeah, we need to do that on a regular basis, is look at who we're following and what's feeding us essentially, and then just make some decisions and just say, you know what, these types of conversations are just not helpful for me. So I'm just going to unfollow this person because I really don't feel good listening to it.
Yes.
And so I think we need to do that evaluation on a regular basis just to make sure that we're feeding ourselves stuff that's positive. Anxiety, we talked a little bit about earlier. It's such a big problem, especially now. Everyone's buckling down for finals and people aren't sleeping enough. They're stressed out completely. So when they feel this anxiety coming on, and usually we can kind of feel it in our gut coming,
Mhm.
what should they do at that point?
I love that because it seems almost post pandemic, everyone was like, okay, this is a national crisis. We all know that. But now it's that everybody is just living in this time. They're living with anxiety. They're not addressing it. Nobody is raising that white flag anymore. They're like, okay, this is just the norm and I have to suffer through it. But honestly, you don't. Anxiety is your body telling you, like, hey, pay attention to me. I need to change this. I need you to try and help me regulate my nervous system. And so, for example, when finals come up or you have to give a big presentation at school, there are actually tips and skills that you can learn that can help you manage that anxiety. You don't have to live with it all the time. And so my favorite tip that is again free and so easy is to practice mindfulness. And what does mindfulness look like? Simply means like going and walking around campus, going for a walk, getting fresh air, just sitting in the sunshine, something that we call grounding yourself. Taking off your shoes and just stepping in the grass and soaking up all that the earth has to offer you. This is all free. And then another thing that can really help if you're feeling stressed out before something big is focusing on your breathing. It's something that we do every single day. We don't even realize it. And we also don't realize how we are breathing incorrectly at times, that we're holding our breaths, that while we're talking, we're not taking a moment to like breathe in and catch our breath, that we are actually not breathing properly. And so there's a simple skill that I'll tell you right now, and it's called boxed breathing. It's simply by focusing on how you are inhaling and exhaling. So you inhale just like you're imagining a box, you inhale for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 6 seconds. And then when you go back down the box, you inhale for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 6 seconds. the numbers are allowed to change. You're allowed to see what feels good. And please take a breath if you can't, exhale for 6 seconds. But these are just very easy things. And then lastly, my favorite tip when it comes to anxiety, body image, anything, is the way that you talk to yourself. That it's so important, this self-talk. And using simply affirmations. I'm actually creating a product this year where it's going to be an affirmation card deck, and it's going to be all positive affirmations to help you in the way that you talk to yourself by simply having I am statements, or I am powerful, I'm strong, I'm going to crush this presentation, I'm going to do amazing on this test. And those are all things that you can implement yourself without having to go to therapy, even though I think you should, but these are tips that you can do on your own.
I love that. That card deck sounds like a great giveaway. I'm just saying, that
Yeah, for
sounds
sure.
like a
I'm
great tool.
excited.
So, we should also talk about therapy too, because I didn't start talking to a therapist until I was an adult. And I feel like that was a huge missed opportunity for me in college. They'll actually pay for you to go to the counseling center on a
Mm,
college campus. I mean, you're paying for that anyway with your tuition. All those people, they're all being paid with your tuition. You might as well use that resource. So, can you talk to our audience about what are some of the benefits of starting therapy from like your client's perspective?
Yes, I think that's such a great point that you have these resources. Why don't you use them?
Mm,
And that now it is becoming so much more accepted to have that place to talk to than maybe when you were in school or when I was in school, that I didn't actually go talk to anyone until I was at my breaking point and in
mm.
crisis. And so that is the actual benefit to starting therapy. It doesn't mean that you have to be at your breaking point. So now I have to go talk to someone. It's actually, let me go talk to someone before I reach that point. Because once you reach that point, it's a lot harder to get yourself back down to that normal resting rate. So what therapy is just having that safe space that you can come process anything and everything. You can show up as your true full self. You're able to actually show up in different ways. If you want to try out communicating in a certain way, you can try that on. And so it's just a space that you don't have to lie. You get to be your full authentic self. And so honestly, that's the number one thing about therapy, is that your therapist is there for you. You are not there for your therapist. And it's just like such a relief to be able to have a safe space to get to process whatever you need to process.
Really important stuff. Really, really good. I hope more students take advantage of that on their college campus. And you
Mm.
also do life coaching as well. Can you talk to our audience about the difference between life coaching and therapy?
That's such a great question because a lot of people don't understand the difference. And
Mhm.
so life coaching is more future focused, where therapy is more focused in the past. So unpacking traumas or things that really like are affecting you now, where coaching is using a strengths-based perspective, positive psychology, if you will, on how to get you to move the needle, but it's not so much looking at past behaviors. And so if you want to do life coaching, it is you're able to work with somebody that is not just in your state. You're able to work with someone, anywhere. Whereas in therapy, most therapists licensed are only licensed for a certain state. For example, I am only licensed to work with individuals in Georgia. So I'm able to see people via telehealth, virtual, or in person. And that is all just based in Georgia. And so therapy is going to go a lot deeper. So if you feel like you want to understand the parts of you that you just don't know what that is, why you're still holding on to it, I would recommend therapy. If you are like, I'm doing okay, I just need a little more accountability, I want somebody to walk alongside me and motivate me to do this goal, you might actually benefit from life coaching.
That's really, really helpful. I'm sure I really didn't know the difference, but now that makes a total sense to me now that you've described it. So that's helpful. Now you're also speaking as well these days, and I found it to be really kind of funny, your program, because your program is putting your oxygen mask on first, which as a
Yes.
flight attendant would make total sense. Now,
Yeah.
thinking about it, like, of course he's going to title it that. So can you talk to us about your programs that are available for college students and college campuses?
Yes, I absolutely am so thrilled to be able to give back to college campuses, to give back to sororities and fraternities, and even speak on like a corporate level. So I have a few different programs that people can choose from, simply from a mental health 101 standpoint, if you will. That's just really destigmatizing and having an open conversation about mental health. It's more that base level. A lot of people are using that for the month of May. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so just opening that door and talking about mental health from a very open discussion, that there's nothing wrong with saying that you're not okay. So that's one of the ways that I get to speak and empower people. But then, like you mentioned, my keynote, that is put on your oxygen mask first, totally ties into flying, and how they say in the safety demo that you have to put on your oxygen mask first before helping others. And that relates to self-care, and that it's not selfish, that you're actually necessary. It's actually required for you to help yourself first before you can help others. And the thing is, if you are constantly pouring out and helping others, then there's going to be a time where you're not even useful, because you are going to be so depleted. So it really talks about practical self-care tips, as we've been talking about today. And then my last one that I really love, and it's more geared towards women and sororities, is about building a life worth living. So this goes into confidence and self-image and self-love. I actually have an exercise that has to do with women coming up and picking a flower that speaks to them, and then saying an I am statement over themselves, and just helping redefine what your self-worth is. Where are you finding your self-worth? And together as a sorority or as a group of women, you get to redefine those beauty standards in a safe space. So I have a lot of different options, but I'm totally also open to hearing a need that an organization is needing and speaking to that. For example, there was something that recently happened at UGA's campus, and coming in and speaking from a crisis intervention standpoint and just pouring into those individuals when they really need it.
Wow, those are some really, really fantastic options. And as a member of DPhi, I think one of the best sororities around, just because they're just so progressive. I love that as an organization. But you have a great perspective. You really understand these fraternity and sorority members. You understand college students. You understand the pressures that they're under. And then, of course, your educational background, when you pair that all together, I think you can do great work with the fraternity and sorority community and college students in general. So I'm really excited for your future. I can't wait to see how things play out. I have a pretty good feeling things are going to work out pretty well for you. So
Thank you.
I'm excited for it. And I do love good food. That is my weakness, is getting some really good food. And you happen to be living really close to me in Atlanta, Georgia, probably about 4 hours away. So I'm wondering, the next time I get to Atlanta, is there a restaurant that you absolutely love in town?
That is honestly the hardest question ever, because Atlanta has so many good food options and new ones are constantly popping up.
Mhm.
I was thinking, where could I take somebody that has never been to Atlanta? What's my favorite restaurant? And honestly, I rarely go to the same restaurant twice. I'm also a foodie myself. I love to try it all. But there is this new place in Grant Park right now, and it's called Birdcage. And it just has that aesthetic. It's Latin inspired food, and it is so good. But I also have a friend who, her Instagram account is called ATL Bucket List, and she's such a foodie and tells you all the places. So that is my reference if you're looking for a good spot. She's even better than I can even explain.
All right. Well, listen, Birdcage sounds really good to me. So you don't
Yeah.
have to ask me twice. That sounds really good. I'm definitely going to go and check it out. And then I'm going to go follow on social media to learn about some more foodie spots because, yeah, just like you, I mean, I just love to try everything. There's nothing
Sure.
that's like off the table for me. It's all on. So, so I really like getting these recommendations. So that way, the next time I'm in town, I know where to go. So
Totally.
this is really good. I love it. All right. So if our listeners, if they want to book you to speak on their college campus, or maybe they want to connect with you for therapy or life coaching, where should they go in order to connect with you?
Definitely. Well, I know everyone is on social media these days, and that is the easiest way to access me. I post a lot of educational content, a lot of real, relatable, and raw content too. So that best way, my handle is Take Off with Tal, giving into the whole flight attendant, mental health, let's take off together theme. So my website is also takeoffwithtal.com. And then if you want to email me, you prefer to chat that way. My email address is takeoffwithtal@gmail.com. And we can connect there, whether it's speaking, therapy. Also, if you want to pre-order these card decks that are coming out so soon, I have a lot of fun things that are coming out really soon.
I love it. Go to Take Off with Paul on Instagram, and over there you can leave a comment on her post today. She's talking
Yes.
about some of the coping mechanisms and way that you can deal with anxiety. So I want you to go and like that post, and I want you to go and comment on there as well. Tell us, let us know how you deal with anxiety when it comes on. And what can I say? Talia Gutierrez, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all this great information, your unique perspective as a flight attendant and a psychotherapist and a sorority woman. All of these things coming together, I think, are just absolutely magical. So thank you for sharing your talents with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. And to our audience, if you enjoyed this conversation with Talia Gutierrez, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other college students on campus that need to hear her words and could benefit from either therapy or life coaching or perhaps speaking on your college campus. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.